Hey everybody, and welcome back to Game Night Date Night, and we are on episode 25, which is in collaborations with Games and Couples, who are part of Oshrat Online Counseling Services. Now, they do amazing things. They concentrate on couples counseling, utilizing a lot of board games as a tool. And one of the things they've done is they created a rating system to help couples decide which board game would best suit their needs. Now, keep in mind, 1 is not bad, 5 is not good. It just depends on where you are as a couple. So the first one is conversation and connection for potential. Whew, I can't talk today. Conversation and connection potential. And this one rates how much opportunity there is while playing the game to hold a conversation with your spouse. Now, some games are so hectic, there's so much going on, that there's really no time to have a conversation because maybe there's a time aspect to the game and you just got to concentrate on the game. Sometimes, there's a lot of open space and you guys can have a long conversation if you wish as you're playing the game. Maybe at the end of the day you come up together playing a game to connect with your spouse, so maybe having more conversation is something that is more important to you. Or maybe things are more tense and less conversation is actually better. The second thing they rate on is getting to know you. How much will you learn about your partner as you are playing the game? Sometimes you have games that are very much you do your own things, they do their own things, kind of compare score at the end of the game, which will have less opportunity to really discover things about your partner, while others is more interaction. Sometimes it's more cooperative play as well, where you're kind of relying on each other to know things about each other or guess things about each other, which would have a much higher rating in that particular case. And the final thing that we're rating on is potential for hurt feelings and conflict. Let's face it, a lot of board games we're competing to be the winner, which means it has to be a loser. And the way that the game goes about that could have a lot of take that element, which could flare up emotions easily. So that's something to be aware of as well. So every week we showcase a game of the week on the Games and Couples Facebook page and also on Instagram. And every month I try to have a bit of a theme with the games. And this month, or for the month of February, I decided to try to concentrate on game that had a second version of a similar or original game. So the first one that I've selected was Wingspan Asia. So Wingspan is a engine building game. Wingspan Asia is an expansion for that, but it is also a standalone 2-player game. And what's really neat about it is they add a whole new board and kind of have some different mechanism, but otherwise plays exactly like Wingspan. So let's look at the rating. For conversation connection potential, I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. You're doing your own things. Well, like you're doing collecting resources and getting cards, but as you're doing all of that, you can definitely hold a conversation. There is no time element. You can kind of take as long as you wish, and it's a bit more of a relaxed game as far as I'm concerned. Getting to know you, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. As you're playing the game, it's interesting. There's goals, public goals that you'll be kind of going for, but there's also private goals. So you might not know what they're concentrating on this time as far as that is involved, but it's interesting to see how they're building up their engine and what they're creating on their own board, as well as on the middle board where you put the yin and the yang symbols, because the goal there is when you get a bird, you need to put one of the symbols there, but it has to match one of the element of the bird. And you can get so caught up in just creating different things on that you forget to create the cluster as well. So there's a lot to think about, and because of that, there's a lot to kind of notice about your partner if they're going to consider those things. And then hurt feelings and conflict, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 5. The main thing that's going to happen is there's a bird that's available and you're hoping for it, because maybe your goal is to have birds with a large wingspan, and finally there's a large bird, and they were all small birds before, and before you get a chance to get that bird, your partner does. So you can definitely get a bit in each other's way that way with the selection of the cards, but then also on the yin yang board, you might be like, okay, great, I'm going to put one there, and it's going to create this nice big cluster, which is going to give me lots of points, and then they put their token there first, kind of stopping you from being able to create that. So it's a bit more of getting in another person's way more than kind of actual take that element, but so that's why I'm giving this one a 2 out of 5. So this is the box of Wingspan Asia. Take note, it's also quite a bit smaller than the original Wingspan, and this is what the original Wingspan looks like. So let's have a closer look at the Wingspan board. So the board itself, every player has their own board. That one is the exact same as Wingspan, mainly because this game can also be played as an expansion to the original game. You can combine them together. So that aspect is the same. The way that the cards of the birds are exactly the same. So you have the different terrain that they're willing to go to. There's a different type of nest and how many birds or how many eggs they can hold. And there's also kind of a requirement on what you need to feed them in order to bring a bird into your board. So all of that aspect is very much the same. Where the game differs is with the yin-yang symbols. So you have one player that has the white ones, one player that has the black ones, and you have that board that goes in the middle where you're trying to create different things. So every round there's a goal, and sometimes the goal will involve where your yin-yang components are positioned on that board. So you're trying to maybe have one in all the different colored areas. So you're trying to do that. But also at the end of the game, you do get to count for the cluster that you've created, so you want to try to keep that in mind as well. I did not the first time I played. One thing that's really cool about the original game Wingspan is that it came with a dice tower that you would put the dice in to select the resources. This one does not have a dice tower. It has that little cardboard tile that you would just kind of put the dice on and take them off if they've been spent. So, but then if you're combining it with the original Wingspan, they kind of don't need 2 dice towers, I suppose. But that was a cool element that hasn't transferred over. So if you have played Wingspan and Wingspan Asia, I am interested, which one would you gravitate to if you were going to play a 2-player game? I mean, Wingspan, I have played 2 players and it does work well, but it's true that the Wingspan Asia with that extra tile kind of adds an interesting element to it as well. Now, the next game I'm going to be talking about is Point City. So, Point City, Conversation, Connection, Potential. I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5. On your turn, you're going to be drawing cards, kind of just trying to create sets, and that'll score at the end of the game. So there is plenty of opportunity to hold a conversation as you are playing your game. Getting to know you, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 5. You're not going to be revealing what you're trying to work towards. If you really pay attention to your partner's cards, you'll kind of have an idea of what they're trying to do. But it's more like I'm collecting my own set, they're collecting their own set. So there's not tons of big revealing moments in this game. Hurt feelings and conflict, a 2 out of 5. This is very much you took the card I wanted type of conflict, because they can't mess with what you have in front of you after you have collected already. But maybe you're really trying to go for a card so that you can get one you wanted, and then by the time your turn comes along, that card is gone. So this game is Point City. Now this one is very nice, compact. It's not like a super small card game, but it's a fairly small box. So it doesn't take a lot of place and it's easy to travel with. The original one that was created was called Point Salad. Point Salad definitely is a simpler version. I would say that Point City is really Point Salad meet Splendor. They've kind of taken 2 elements, combined it into one game. And this is what this game looks like. So you will have the board with cards, and the way that it starts, it's going to have cards that are on the resource side and on the building side and so on. And every time you draw a card on your turn, it gets replaced with one from the other side. So if you take a resource card, it gets replaced with a building card. And these cards are double-sided, so one side is resource, one side is building. Then if you take a building card, it gets replaced with a resource card. And you'll have the resource card that'll allow you to spend to accumulate these building cards. So you can't take a building card until you have the resources for them. So once you have enough resource for them, you'll take the resource, and then you have you can add the building. Sometimes building is going to give you a permanent resource, giving you the ability to always have that resource on spending. Sometimes it'll give you kind of an end of game scoring, and there's different things that they can do. And then what's neat is you'll be collecting, and then of course some of the building cards will also have a point value, just giving you point for owning that building. So you play until you can't refill the board, and then you tally up the points, and whoever has the most points is the winner. This is a very simple game to play, and it's quick and easy as well, so it's very enjoyable, and I like the artwork and the bright colors. It's great. Next one I'm going to talk about is Sushi Roll. So Sushi Roll is a dice drafting game. So you start, everybody has a little conveyor belt tile, and you'll take a bag and you'll pull a couple of dice from that, and you'll roll them and put them on the conveyor belt. Then you're going to draw one of them, add it to your menu, and then it gets passed along to the next person. Then you get the next conveyor belt and you add your things. Now, depending on what dice you get and what is rolled on those dice, you're going to be creating different combinations that are going to score differently depending on how it shows on your menu. The menu shows how you score them. You'll have menu cards. You'll have chopstick cards that allow you to do different things. So the menu allows you to re-roll the dice. The chopsticks allows you to take a dice from another player's conveyor belt and swap it out with yours. And then there's also the dessert tile. And with the dessert tile, it's like, whoever has the most will get a lot of points at the end of the game, but they don't count for anything in the beginning. So do you really want to waste getting desserts now when they really don't do anything yet? But yes, you kind of want to make sure you don't negate that either. So let's look at the rating system. So for conversation, connection, potential, I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5. You get your dice, you select your dice, it gets passed along. You can definitely hold a conversation as you're doing that. Getting to know you, I'm giving this one a 3 out of 5. You kind of get busy with checking on what's going on your own board. If you pay attention to the others, you can kind of see, like, oh, that's daring, because they're trying for one that requires for you to get 3 of the same dice or something to score, and they've got 2, but like they're hoping the third one will come along and that they'll end up getting it. So are they pretty gutsy that way? Are they more conservative? It's interesting to see how they'll play. So that is Sushi Roll. Now, Sushi Roll is based off of the game Sushi Go. And Sushi Go is a drafting card game. So they've replaced the cards with dice and kind of added that cute conveyor belt mechanism to it, which is really neat. But I quite enjoy the card game myself. So here's what the game looks like. You have the points, you have the menu tiles, the dessert tiles, I mean, and then you have like your menu board that shows how everything is going to score. It's a neat game. I quite enjoy this one. I still myself prefer Sushi Go. Now, when I posted it that week and I kind of put things like, hey, so Sushi Go or Sushi Roll, which way would you go? And a lot of people definitely prefer the Sushi Roll because of the dice. If you're a big fan of dice checking and that's something you really like in your board game, Sushi Roll might appeal to you the most. A lot of people like me still like the original Sushi Go, so that's something to consider. And then the next one that we talked about is Splendor Duel. So Splendor is a great game. Splendor Duel is a 2-player version of that game. So this will only play 2-player. And it kind of changed the mechanism quite a bit. Let's have a look at the rating first. So conversation, connection, potential, I'm giving this one a 3 out of 5. Yes, you can hold a conversation as you're playing the game. It's not time bound. There's not tons and tons to consider, so it's a little bit more lenient for just holding a conversation. Getting to know you, I'm giving this one a 3 out of 5. A simple decision as what you need to do, and you're going to be busy kind of looking at your own stuff that you're not going to pay super close attention to what the other players are doing. At least that's how I play. Some people might be more towards that. It's like, ooh, I want to make sure I'm not leaving behind what they want, and they might be playing that way. Which brings me to hurt feelings and conflict. This is another one where they might take the card you were hoping to get. They might have drawn the tiles that you were hoping to get. And there's also with this interesting thing, like there's certain action will cause the other player to get a scroll, which gives them the ability to kind of draw extra tokens. So you're gonna hold back on doing certain activities because you don't want to give them a scroll and give them an advantage. So how much of that do you hold back, or so? But then some actions with these cards will be that you can activate different abilities, such as take a token from the other player. So it's not even just you got in my way, but you took the token I personally went and got because I wanted it. So there's definitely a little bit more of that going on, but overall I think it's a fairly friendly game. So this is Splendor Duel, which, keep in mind, is quite a bit smaller box-wise than Splendor, even though there's a lot more elements to it. So I guess Splendor just originally had a fairly large box for what's inside. And this is the original Splendor. So this is a closer look at the Splendor Duel. So just like Splendor, we have the different cards on the 3 different levels that require certain gems for you to be able to acquire. Once you get them, they will probably give you permanent gems abilities that you can just have. And the higher the level, the more points they're going to be worth, but the more gems they're going to require. Where it really changes is the board, because you still have the same type of token, but it all starts with putting them in a spiral fashion onto the board, and then on your turn you can draw 3 gems in a row. In a line, whether it's diagonal or up and down, you can take anything as long as it doesn't have a gold, because gold is not a gem, and as long as there's no gaps. You can't jump over a gap to take different gems. So at the beginning, no problem, there's a bunch of gems there, and you'll kind of take 3 in a row, and then that's what you're collecting. As the board get emptier and emptier, it's like your selection are getting lesser. And it's like, well, it's like, I was really hoping for this. Now, you do have the option at any time to go in the bag, take the discarded tiles, tokens, and refill the board, but doing so gives the other player a scroll, which gives them an advantage. So you really will find yourself trying to hold on not to refill the board and hope that the other player will end up having to do it, so that on your turn you have like a nice filled board and a scroll. So it is really interesting. And then, unlike the original Splendor, there's 3 ways to win this game. If you have 10 points in 1 colored gem cards, you will win the game. If you have a certain amount of points overall, you would win the game. And I forget what the third one is. Man, that's gonna bug me now. But there is a third way to win the game, which I'm sure is a great way. I'm so sorry, I just forgot that. It's just drew blank. Now, a lot with this one, I posted on there, okay, you are 2 players, and you want to play Splendor. Which one do you grab? Splendor Duel or Splendor the original? And people definitely had an opinion on this one. There was tons of comments, and it was almost 50-50. I like the original. No, Splendor Duel is definitely the superior game here. Now keep in mind, the moment you want to play with more than 2 players, you are playing the original Splendor. But even at 2 players, I enjoy Splendor. And I enjoy Splendor Duel. Splendor Duel has a bit more, like, it feels like it has a bit more going with it. It's a bit more technical with the different actions you can activate, as opposed to Splendor being pretty smooth and straightforward game. But I enjoy both. I might lean more towards the original Splendor, though, I would say. So that was it for the games that was discussed during the month of February. If you have an opinion on which one you think you would lean forward, or another game that they've made a second edition of, or kind of second version of, that you would like to play with your partner, put those in the comments below. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. My Instagram is Mel's_boardgame_room, and we also have Games and Couples. We're also on Facebook at Mel's Board Game Room, as well as Games and Couples Love in the Age of Board Game, and the YouTube channel Mel's Board Game Room and Games and Couples Love in the Age of Board Game. Bye, everybody.